Hello folks, Panzer J back with a new video. This video again is on Historical Board Gaming's Global War 1939. This is game number 4. I have the same opponents as the last game, the Incredible Falk and Agent 367. We're still playing the Global 39 game. Not only do we really like it, but we're still learning this game. This is actually only the 4th game that I've played against an actual opponent. So all of us are still kind of learning the rules a little bit. There's still mistakes we make. There's still things we forget here and there. So we're trying to get this game down a little bit more before we move on to Global 36. I mean, 36 is definitely a step up in terms of complexity. Terrain features, new units, a bunch of new rules. So we're trying to get Global 39 down first. Plus, we just happen to really enjoy playing it. I think it's a good mix of being a step up from the Axis and Allies games, but not quite, obviously, as complex as 36. So we went ahead and we rolled dice for which side we would take on. If you remember the last game, they were the Axis and I was the Allies, and I was defeated. So we rolled dice this time, and it just so happened that I got the Axis powers, and the two of them got the Allies. So the Incredible Falk is France, Britain, Anzac, and the Far East Command, and Agent 367 is Russia, U.S., Communist China, and National China. So that was how the game broke down as far as which sides we were on. As far as the action, again, we're at the start of turn 4, so every country has had 3 rounds each. And as Germany, they go first in the game. So I think I pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to on turn 1. It was pretty typical. I took Paris, I took Warsaw, took Holland, Denmark, Norway, Yugoslavia, Greece. Did some damage to the British Navy in the Atlantic. Activated all 4 of the Axis minor powers, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, Finland. So all the usual for Germany. Most of the combat went my way. Didn't lose too much, although some of the naval combat didn't go my way. One mistake I made on turn 1 is I usually come over here and take out this British destroyer and the 2 British transports. I instead used all my U-boats to come over here to Sea Zone 23 to take on this British fleet. And not only did I not take out the British fleet, I lost all my U-boats, but then I didn't have anything on the second impulse to be able to come over and take out these British ships. So he has a couple of more transports on the board than he should have, and that has kind of screwed me over a little bit. So that was a mistake. I don't think in future games as Germany, I'll go ahead and do that. I think I'll stay away from taking on that fleet. It's just difficult because you've got so many things as Germany you want to accomplish on turn 1, and you do have a lot of resources, and obviously you have a second impulse on turn 1, so you, in essence, get to go twice in the first round. And at the end of the first impulse, you do get to put on what the items that you bought at the beginning of the turn. But even with that, there's so many things. You know, Paris definitely has to fall. You want to take Warsaw. You want to activate the Axis minor powers. A few other things, Norway, Denmark, and then there's so many British ships in the Atlantic, down here in the central Atlantic as well, that there's just so much you want to accomplish that I probably should have played it safer and just made sure I took out as much as I could without like stretching myself so thin that I try to take everything. So that kind of hampered me a little bit, but we'll live and learn with that maneuver. Other than that, I had, again, taken basically all of Europe fell under the German jackboot on turn 1. As you can see here, we've got a bunch of stuff on the Eastern Front now. Germany is not at war with Russia at this time, although they will attack Russia here on turn 4. That is going to happen. So for the time being, we're at peace. So I'm still getting the $5 bonus from Russia, having trade with Russia. Also, I get the $5 bonus for Norway and Denmark being under control while Sweden's neutral. And the income's 59 plus the bonuses. So I'm collecting right around, 69, 70 bucks a turn. So that's pretty typical 3 turns in for Germany. That's pretty good. As you can see on the Eastern Front here, down in Romania, I've got about 10 mechs, about 12 infantry, some artillery, some tanks, about a half a dozen planes, all ready to crash into Russia. On the central part of the front here in Warsaw, I've got, and just outside Warsaw, I got a couple of SS Panzers, 4 regular Panzers, 7 mechs, 3 Stukas, and a couple of strategic bombers. So more than enough to take on what he's got here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the mechs and the tanks into Western Ukraine, take out those 3 guys and that artillery, send my 3 artillery into Bessarabia, take out his single man, and then I'm going to choose this territory here, East Poland, as the territory. When Germany first invades Russia, they get to pick one territory that's like a surprise attack. So all my units are +1 for attack and all his units are -1. So he's like built up quite a bit here in East Poland. He's got a stack of about 10 men, a mech, a tank, 4 planes, 4 fighters, and a couple of artillery. So I'm going to choose that as the territory I do the sneak attack on. So I'm going to bring almost all of these infantry over and everything here in Warsaw and attack that. And with that surprise attack bonus, I should easily be able to take out all that. So if you take a look here, you take out what he's got in East Poland, you take out Bessarabia and Western Ukraine, he's got like almost nothing left through almost all of Western Europe. He's got like 3 men and 2 artillery here in Orel-Kursk. And that's it, all the way back to Moscow. So Russia is going to basically be totally wide open after this first German attack. I still should have a bunch of stuff left over, and especially down here in southern Russia, I'm going to have all these mechs and tanks, which can go 2 spaces, and it's going to be all wide open. So I'm going to be able to be at the gates of Moscow probably at the latest, the 3rd turn into the attack on Russia. He's not going to have much that he can really do to stop that. So he probably made a little bit of a mistake bunching all that stuff up in East Poland with that sneak attack that I have. So that'll be good. I'll start taking away some of the income for Russia, gobble up some of those territories, and really in a position to kind of run wild through Russia. So before the attack even begins, I think it's safe to say Russia is going to be in a world of hurt here. He's a little bit better up north. We've been kind of going back and forth into Finland. He takes one of the territories, I take it back, and keep going back and forth like that. So he does have a little bit up here, and I don't have much in the way of Finnish forces, but it's not going to matter if I'm taking all this down here from Russia. I'm also going to go ahead and take this transport with 2 men from Western Germany and go 1 and land in Leningrad along with a couple of planes. All he's got in Leningrad right now is a single tactical. He will get to fire 2 times because of the fortress, but still, I should be able to take that. If I have to, I'm going to take planes as casualties so that I have at least 1 infantry left that can take Leningrad itself. Now, obviously, I'm not going to hold Leningrad with a single man, but putting a guy up there blocks him from being able to come down from up north into my central and southern excursion into Russia, and just gives him 1 more territory he's got to worry about and take back. So that's what I'm going to do for Germany at the beginning of turn 4. I also have to spend a bunch of money in the West. If you take a look, the incredible Falk, who is one of the countries he's controlling, is the United Kingdom, and I got to give him props. This is probably the second game, the second of 3 games he's played as the UK that he's done really well. I haven't been able to get the UK to play nearly as well as how he plays them. So he's got a bunch of planes. He's got 4 transports and some men. So he has already landed back in Bordeaux. He's only got 3 infantry and a mech there, so I'm definitely going to counterattack with what's in Paris, these men, these tanks, these mechs. So I'll take that back. But I've got to start pumping more units into Western Europe right on this build. So I'm going to probably build I'm going to put a bunch of infantry in Berlin. I'm going to put about 5 mechs in Western Germany so that I can counterattack whatever he's got. I do have this stack of 10 guys in Western Germany, but I'm going to have to put more into Western Germany itself because he's got the UK so strong at this point. Not only in terms of the units on the board, but also in terms of income. Right now he's collecting $61, not counting bonus, as UK, which is even better than Germany by $2. So he's got the UK extremely strong at this point. So I got to I would rather put that money into the Eastern Front to back up the attack, but I think I'll still be okay out there. But I got no choice. I got to put stuff into Western Europe to guard against his British attacks. So that's where we're at with Germany. I think we're going to be sitting pretty even, just one turn into the Russian attack here. Italy, it's been about 50-50 with Italy. They're collecting $28. Plus, they do have a bonus of no Allied ships in the Mediterranean. So they're collecting low 30s. So that isn't too bad, three turns in. They did take Cairo the last turn with this single man, which he'll take that right back. But the good thing about that is I destroyed the fortification and the industrial complex he had put down there. So even if he takes it back this turn, he can't put a complex down on it this turn because he'll have just taken it back. So then let's say he buys it for the next turn, but then you can't put anything down into the complex the turn that you place it on the board. So he isn't going to be able to produce anything in Cairo for 3 turns. So he's not going to really have much that's going to reinforce what he's already got in North Africa because he has no complex. He does have one down in South Africa, which hopefully I've got a little bit of a surprise for him there, which I'll talk about in a minute. But other than that, North Africa, he's not going to be able to reinforce it. Now I'm holed up here in Tobruk with 3 men and a fighter. That will probably fall this turn. I was thinking about bringing these German fighters down and reinforcing Tobruk to hold on to Tobruk. But I really need those fighters to go back to Western Germany to guard against the British. Plus also, I don't know, it's not a big deal if I lose Tobruk. I'll be kicked out of Africa, but I've got the entire Med to myself. He has no ships. I've got like 4 transports, a bunch of men. I can just come right back into Africa the next turn. And again, he has no complexes that he's going to be able to reinforce. So I'm not really too worried if he takes Tobruk this turn. As a matter of fact, I might just kind of sacrifice it. I don't think I'm going to reinforce there. So Italy's not in that bad a shape. I'm also going to move up this stack of men 1 spot up to Turin, buy 10 more men, put them in Turin. So then that way I can start moving these Italian infantry into France. So then on the following turn, I can move into Marseille with a bunch of Italian infantry. So even if he is landed back on the continent as the British, I'll have a stack of about 15, 20 Italian infantry in Marseille to help counterattack. So I'm going to continue to beef up Western Europe with some Italian units. Other than that, I'm going to, in future turns, sink some more money into the Italian Navy. As of now, we've got, again, the Mediterranean free. He does have this Navy over here. It's got a damaged battleship, 4 destroyers, and a sub. But that can't even compare with the Navy I got, not to mention that I've got the Mediterranean currently closed because I own Gibraltar. He'll probably take that back, but then I got a blocker here as well. So you're talking a couple of turns before he even gets into the Med. And that Navy can't even compete with what I've got anyways. So Italy's not too bad. They're kind of just holding their own, doing their own thing. I'm not too worried about Africa. Like I said, even if I lose Tobruk this turn, I've got the transports and the men in Rome to just come right back. So that's not a big deal. Over in the Pacific, I tried a few different things here, and as you can see, the rising sun is spread out through all of the Pacific here, especially the South Pacific. I really have done good as Japan. Japan's sitting at $68 in territory, plus they've got 2 $5 bonuses, so $78 right now they're collecting. And this turn here, 4, which they go second in the turn itself, I'm going to take about $11 worth of additional territory. So I'll be up to almost $90 at the end of this turn in terms of what I collect. So what did I do? I learned from game 2, I think we played. It was just me and the Incredible Falk, and he was the Allies and I was the Axis. And I had Germany kicking ass. Germany had taken Moscow. They were all the way to the Urals in Russia. I mean, Germany was collecting upwards of $100 a turn. They were just rolling. But Japan was where I had faltered. And what my mistake was in Japan is I didn't concentrate on one of the powers. Japan's got the Far East Command, ANZAC, National and Communist China, and possibly Russia if Russia attacks, and then eventually the United States, all as adversaries in the Pacific. So instead of concentrating on just one and getting them completely eliminated, I kind of just took a jab at each of the countries, knocked them back, but didn't knock any of them out. So then I had everybody still in the game to gang up on Japan. So this time I made it a priority to take out the Far East Command, who are the second most important and the second most powerful adversary Japan has in the Pacific. Obviously, number one is the United States, but they're not into the game yet. And usually they're not in the game until about the fifth turn or so. So Far East Command, I made it a priority to take them out. So what I did on turn one is I brought transports and planes, came down. I attacked Singapore on turn one, took that, and then was in a position by turn three to take Calcutta, which I did. As you can see, I've got 2 veteran infantry left and a bunch of ships. So I took the Far East Command down on turn 3, and he has a single man left as the Far East Command, so there's nothing that guy can do. So he's not going to take Calcutta back. As a matter of fact, I'm going to kill this guy on Japan's turn. So that was huge, taking out the Far East Command. One of the opponents Japan is forced to fight against here in the Pacific, totally wiped off 3 turns in. Then China is going to be my next target here. So for this turn, I'm going to upgrade this minor complex to a major in Siam. I'm going to put 3 tanks down there this turn, 3 mechs in Shanghai, and 10 infantry in Tokyo. I'm going to start maneuvering this stuff around. I'm going to take back all these territories that have a single man. So that's 4 Chinese territories at $1 apiece, and kind of get him boxed in just to these 2 territories, Szechuan and this territory here with this stack of men. And with a major complex going here this turn 3, starting on turn 4, I'll start being able to drop 10 units per turn in there. So I won't be able to take China out here this next turn, but the following turn I think I'll be in Szechuan, and that'll be pretty much the end of China. So I think you're talking 2 turns left for the Chinese, and that's it. Up north, up here by Manchuria, the Russians went ahead and attacked Japan. So I lost a couple of territories to the Russians, but I'm going to use these veteran Japanese troops to move back in here, take that territory. Plus, I've got 3 transports, and I've got some tanks on the coast. So what I'm going to do is use a couple of these transports to pick up these 2 tanks down here in Shanghai and move up and drop them off into these 2 northern Russian territories. I'm going to take this infantry in Vladivostok and move him up 1 to Amur. So that's $3 worth of Russian territories I'm going to take away on this turn. So I'll start picking away at the Russian territories in the Far East, and with the trouble Russia's going to have on this turn from Germany, he's not going to really be able to put any money in this factory over here in Novosibirsk, which means the only Russian troops that I'm going to really have to face probably for several turns, or maybe even the rest of the game, is just what he's got here, which is like 2 artillery, 4 men, and like 4 tanks. So I don't think Russia's long for the Far East either. I think I'm going to be able to really take control of that. And then that'll just leave the communist Chinese here on the mainland, and that's it. So I think Japan's really got things under control on the Asian mainland. I'm also going to bring this fleet that's off of the coast of Australia back over to here with this transport and these couple of men. And I'm going to take Dutch New Guinea this turn. I'm also going to go ahead with these 6 cruisers and 2 of the transports and come down over here. And then the 2 remaining transports are going to pick up these 2 men and this guy, come over to here, land in Bombay and Madras, take both of those territories. There's another $2, plus I'll be at a naval port. And here's where the surprise I hope to have in store for the Incredible Folk. So I'm going to do this on Japan's turn here, turn 4. If on Britain's turn 4, he does not put anything in South Africa, as you can see, it's completely empty. On Japan turn 5, I'll be here at a naval base, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, land in South Africa and take that. So then that'll be his only complex left on Africa will be gone, and I'll go up a couple of dollars. So we'll see if he reinforces that or not. So I think I got a good shot at taking South Africa on turn 5. And that's pretty much where we stand at with Japan. Now let's talk about the United States. They're still not in the game, so they're sitting at $67 right now, which they need to be at $80 to be able to declare war themselves. So they're $13 away. but I'm going to attack Russia this turn, so that'll give them $10. So it'll be at $77 before they roll on turn 4. So obviously, there's almost no way they're going to get less than a 3 on two 12-sided die rolls. So I can count on the United States being at war on turn 5. But for turn 4, they're still, since they're not at war, they still have to keep all their ships and all their units next to, adjacent to U.S. land zones or convoy boxes. So I've still got the U.S. bottled up along the United States coast for the most part itself. Now, I haven't used my sneak attacks as Japan. I was saving them for the United States. So Japan gets 3 sneak attacks. And when they do a sneak attack, they get a bump up of $35 automatically that turn. So they collect $35 extra. And for the sneak attacks, if it's against anyone but the United States, they get basically a round of free combat without the opponent being able to fire back. And if it's the United States, it's that plus U.S. ships for the entire battle are -2 to their defense. So, but if the United States gets into the game before I use the sneak attack, I lose the sneak attack. So here's kind of like my conundrum that I've got going on right now for Japan. So we're at turn 4. The United States is definitely going to have enough to enter the war on turn 5. So basically, I have to use my sneak attack this turn 4 or lose it altogether. So I've been kind of going back and forth with this. Now, on the surface, it might seem kind of stupid, like, well, why wouldn't you use your sneak attack? Not only, obviously, does it do all that damage, but you get the $35 bonus. But the only sneak attack I could do is on the United States, because I've already attacked the rest of the Western allies. And there's nothing within range that I have as Japan except for the Philippines, which I can take that fairly easily without a sneak attack. So why use the sneak attack? Yes, I'm giving up the $35, but by not using the sneak attack, the U.S. for this turn 4 on their turn, they have to still continue to maintain all their units by the United States. They can't come out into the Pacific, or on the Atlantic side, they can't go out into the Atlantic. They're stuck by the United States themselves. By doing that, I'm basically buying myself another turn before the United States can really get into the conflict, whether it's on the European side, that maybe they want to land in France. In the Pacific, maybe they want to start making a move towards Japan. So now, this turn 4, they're stuck by the United States. Turn 5, they can start moving out, but whether it's on the Pacific side or on the European side, it's going to take them 2 turns to get over into Europe or over into Japan itself. So I've basically, by not using my sneak attack this turn and letting the sneak attack just kind of run out, yes, I give up the $35, but now the United States is not going to be able to land ground units in either Asia or Europe for 3 turns now. So I'll have 3 turns worth of builds for Germany and Japan. And at that point, I should have, in the Pacific, I should have the Chinese completely eliminated. I should have the Russians, if not completely eliminated, pushed back. So you're talking about Japan. Once the United States is fully in the game, Japan really only has, like the United States and maybe Australia, to deal with in the Pacific. All of this area here will be all Japanese. So I'll only have to fight on one front as the Japanese. I'll be collecting probably upwards of $100 or so. I'll be matching the U.S. dollar for dollar in terms of income, and there's no way he's going to be able to take Tokyo under those conditions. And Anzac will still be left, but I've got them bottled up down here. They have no ships, so I'm not really worried about what Anzac can do. I'm just going to let them sit there and buy their units and sit on their island, basically. The big island of Australia. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and give up my sneak attack, although it hasn't been a total waste, because by not using my sneak attack on the Western Allies and holding that sneak attack back, that's caused Agent 367 as the United States to pull back a big part of his Navy that was in Hawaii over to the East Coast because he was in fear of me using my sneak attack on him. So even without using the sneak attack, just the threat of the sneak attack has been enough to make Agent 367 pull all of his stuff back to the United States, which is perfect because then that's going to take him that much longer to actually get into the action once the United States is at war. So that's what we're looking like for Japan. And as you can see over here, this is the same thing I'm talking about with the United States. He's all along the coast of the United States besides this fleet down here. But again, if he wants to land in Europe, this turn 4, he's not going to be at war yet. So all this stuff has to stay here. And then 1, 2, 3 the next turn, and then again the next turn. So you're talking 3 turns from now before the United States could possibly be in Europe. And by then, I'll have put a shit ton of money as Germany into Western Europe. Plus, I'll have moved up all these infantry and bought more infantry from Italy. They'll be in France. So I'll be more than in a position to repel what the United States can bring a couple of turns from now. And again, that'll have given me 3 turns to deal with Russia, just kind of one-on-one. And if Moscow hasn't fallen at that point, I'll be at the gates of Moscow and all this will be mine. So even with Moscow maybe not having fallen at that point, it could the following turn, and I'll have degraded the Russian economy so much that he'll be hardly able to put any units on the board each turn anyways. So that's how things kind of look for Global War 39, our 4th game, 3 turns in. But I could be wrong. If you remember back to my last video, this is just like that last video. This is going to be like a 2-parter. This covers obviously the beginning of the game, and then the next video will cover the up to the conclusion of the game. And at the halfway point of the last video, I thought I was in good position as the Allies, and I thought I was going to put the crunch on those guys and actually come out with the victory. And it turned out that I kind of got my ass kicked. And they did a couple of things I wasn't expecting, took a couple of chances I didn't think they would, and I ended up losing. So even though things look really good for the Axis right now, definitely no guarantee. So we'll be back. Hopefully those guys will be over tomorrow before work and we can play some, or on our days off. And we'll let you know how the conclusion goes. Hopefully I can get back in the win column here. I definitely don't want those guys to have yet another game up on me. So wish me luck, and we'll see you in a couple days. Hello, folks. Panzer J back. This is the second part of a video on Global War 39, game number 4. The first part of the video covered rounds, turns 1 through 3. And this video is going to cover where we're at the end of turn number 8. So we're heading into turn number 9. Just a quick reminder, I am the Axis, Germany, Japan, and Italy. The Incredible Falk is the United Kingdom, Anzac, and the Far East Command. And Agent 367 is the United States, Russia, and both Communist and National China. So let's take a look at where we're at. Again, I can't really tell you much as far as the strategies and the future plans of my opponents. So I can really just talk about some of the moves I've made and what I kind of plan on doing in the future. Without trying to get too far ahead of myself, I think I've got this game won. And I'll talk about why here in a little bit. And if I do end up pulling this game out, then of the 4 games that we will have played, the Axis will have won 3 of the 4, and then the other one was a tie. We officially called it a tie, but I actually would lean more towards an Axis victory. So if this game does turn out where I win it, then the Allies will basically be 0 for 4. So I don't know if a lot of you guys have the same experience that the Axis usually come out with a victory, or maybe we're just not playing the Allies properly, but we got to get the Allies in the win column one of these games. So I actually wouldn't mind taking on the role of either the Allies or with a partner splitting up the Allies and seeing what we can kind of do, because again, it doesn't seem like the Allies are that successful. Now, the Incredible Falk, again, playing as the United Kingdom, has got the UK kicking ass in this game. That is really the one lone bright spot for the Allies. They're giving me all kinds of problems in Europe. And income-wise, they're collecting $79. So you're at you're at the start of turn 9, and the UK's at $79, and that doesn't even count bonuses. So he's making some mad money, and he's got a lot of good stuff going on. Definitely, at this point in our gaming experience, a superior UK player than I am. He's done a lot of good stuff here, but I think it's going to be in a losing cause. But we'll see. Russia again has kind of gone down in flames. Even in the one game that we officially called a tie, but again, I think the Axis, it was leaning more towards the Axis, but even in that game, Russia got totally crushed. So Russia is definitely 0 for 4 in our gaming experience. We've had, I think now this is the third different person to have controlled Russia. The Incredible Falk, I think, had Russia for 2 games. I had him for 1, and then Agent 367 has got him this game, and none of us have had any success with the Russians. I mean, whatever strategy we employ, whether it's, pulling almost everything back and just leaving a single infantry in each territory as kind of a blocker, whether it's concentrating a little bit in the Far East and trying to harass Japan, whether we're buying all infantry, whether we're buying some fighters at the beginning of Russians' turns, whatever. It doesn't seem like any of us have been able to make much headway with Russia. I don't know if that's inherently in this game, that Russia is going to fall or at least have all kinds of trouble no matter what strategy you employ, but we'll see. I mean, again, I think the Allies present more of a challenge, so I hope the next game that I can take on the role of at least a couple of the Allies and see if we can get things turned around for them. But anyways, let's talk about how things look here at the end of turn 8. So with Germany, if we take a look, let's talk about the good for Germany first. We're collecting $57, which that really isn't the good. That's really just about okay at best, honestly. You're 8 turns in Germany, you're only collecting $57, and I have no bonuses either as Germany. As you can see up here, there's British roundels on both Denmark and Oslo, so I'm not getting that $5 bonus for the Swedish iron ore being able to make it to Germany, because both Denmark and Oslo are under Allied control. And obviously I'm at war with Russia, so I'm not getting that bonus. So I have no bonuses right now as Germany. So only collected $57, but I did take Moscow on the last turn. So Moscow fell, and I still have quite a bit left. I've got 7 regular tanks, 3 SS tanks, and 4 or 5 mechs. So, and as you can see here, Russia doesn't have a whole lot left. They got a few guys left in Stalingrad, a couple of territories with single infantry, and then they do have a decent force still left up in Karelia, about 8 infantry, a mech, and a tank. And that is actually where Agent 367 moved his capital once Moscow fell. He had the choice of either Novosibirsk over here in the Far East or Karelia, and he chose Karelia. So if I take Karelia, then the Russians can only move their capital 1 time after Moscow falls. So if I can take Karelia, Russia will pretty much be effectively out of the game. And as you can see here, there's nothing in Novgorod. So I'm just going to come up with all these units from Moscow, and that should be enough to take Karelia. I mean, the 7 regular tanks attack at a 6, the 3 SS tanks at a 7, the mechs at a 2. So Karelia should fall this turn, turn 9, and that'll effectively wipe Russia out. I'll collect the money Russia's got, which they've got about $47 saved right now, so that'll be a big boost to Germany's spending power on turn 10. And with Karelia gone, as you can look and see here, there's hardly anything left. He won't be able to buy any units. He doesn't have a capital. So I'm just going to be able to, over the next couple turns, just take up all the remaining Russian territories. So even though Germany's only sitting at $57 worth of income right now, all of Russia and all the remaining Russian territories will be mine within a couple of turns here. So doing really good on the Eastern Front and about to finish off the Russian bear. We've got all of southeastern Europe under German control. I did lose one original German territory, Stettin, or no, Elbing, excuse me, is currently under British control. I'm going to take that back this turn, though. And then over in Western Germany, I'm building up a nice force. I got about 18 tanks, 5 men, and 7 fighters in Western Germany. Plus, with all, not just turn 9's builds, but all my subsequent builds. I don't think I need to put anything else in Russia to finish them off. So everything I build from this point forward is going into Western Germany and in Germany itself. So I'm going to start pushing back on the British here in the next couple of turns. Like I said, I won't have to worry about my Eastern Front. Russia's going to fall and be permanently out of the game here. So everything I produce, all my money, everything I'm just going to put right back into the West. So I'm definitely going to start pushing back here pretty soon. As Italy, I've got a huge stack of men here in Marseille, about 20 guys roughly. The Italian Navy still in the game. We got, a couple battleships, a couple of cruisers, not a whole bunch. Italy's been kind of on the defensive for a few turns now. They're only at $24 worth of income and no bonuses. So, but I mean, the bottom line is we're 9 turns in and Italy still is a factor. So that's kind of that's a plus in and of itself. I mean, I've seen several games where Italy's already knocked out by this point, or at least, just totally turtled into Rome. Africa has fallen. I mean, I've got a few German roundels still on the board, but they're just territories that aren't worth any money. So Britain's completely kicked me out of Africa. So mostly what I'm doing is with this stack of men in Marseille, these Italian infantry, I want to kind of move them over. At least they're a blocker. I mean, that'd be a tough nut to crack to get through all those guys. So that's how things kind of look for the Axis in Europe. If you take a look, you see a lot of yellow chips, a lot of yellow units in France. That is the Incredible Falk as the British. And this is what I'm talking about. He took Paris back on the last turn. He's got about 10 guys total there. The U.S. and Britain combined have landed in Bordeaux. You got probably about 15 guys, about 15 fighters, a couple of tanks. And then he's even in Normandy with about 4 men. Plus, as you can see, he's got a bunch of transports, more fighters ready to come over from England, more men ready to come over from England. So, and then if we pan down here, again, looking at South America, he's taken all of those pro-Allied territories as the British. Africa, again, completely void of any Axis units at all. The one good thing is, up here, he had put like most British players do, he had put a minor complex down in Cairo, and I was able to take Cairo. Cairo's gone back and forth, changed hands a couple of times, actually. So the only, and I destroyed that factory when I took Cairo the first time. So the only factory he's got in Africa is down here in South Africa, a minor. So even though he currently holds all of Africa, none of these units in Central to Northern Africa can be backed up with a factory to put new units down. So once I've kind of stabilized things in France, with all the German units I'm going to be building and putting there, I still have like 3 Italian transports. So I'm going to eventually start bringing the Italians back over to Africa. So I'm not, even though all of Africa is currently lost to me, I'm not overly concerned with that. I think I'm going to be able to keep Italy as a viable contributor to the Axis cause here and get back into Africa here pretty soon. So, and as far as the United States goes, Agent 367 has brought this U.S. fleet into the Med, and that is now denying me the Italian bonus of no Allied warships in the Mediterranean, so I've lost that bonus. And he's got a decent fleet here. He's got about a half a dozen destroyers, a couple of cruisers, a couple battleships, a sub, and a loaded carrier. Definitely more than a match for what I've got for Italy. But the other good thing is Leningrad over here is going to fall this turn. It's got a single guy there, so I'm definitely taking Leningrad, and I already hold Moscow. So with Moscow and Leningrad in my possession, Spain is now going to go pro-Axis. So that's now going to be German. So all of these Spanish units are going to be mine here on this turn 9. I won't be able to move them. I'll just activate them this turn 9, so they won't actually be able to move until turn 10. But so then I'll get this Spanish fleet down here will become German, a battleship, a cruiser, a destroyer, a sub, a transport, and then all these air and ground units in Spain itself. So that'll throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into the Allied plans. The U.S. will then have to fight off this German fleet here from Spain. So that'll give Italy some backup and a little bit of breathing space before the U.S. come after the Italian ships. And then with these Italian units, or excuse me, these Spanish units that become German here in Spain itself, now the Incredible Falk will probably come down into Spain, divert him from going any further into France, which is what I prefer him to do. So even though they have a nice foothold in Europe right now, I think overall the European side of the map is definitely looking Axis. Like I said, Russia is going to be wiped out this turn or the next. Not only does that eliminate, a need for Germany to have to worry about the Eastern Front, then they can obviously start putting all their money, all their units into the West. And then also income-wise, it just allows me to start taking up all these Russian territories. So I'll get Germany's economy boosted up here pretty good. And again, Italy's still viable. So it's going to basically be Italy and Germany taking on Britain. I don't think he's going to win that battle. And why didn't I include the U.S.? Because the U.S. has got all kinds of problems in the Pacific, which we're going to look at here in a minute. So the U.S. is going to pretty much be having to devote almost all their resources to the Pacific because Japan is running wild. I've got Japan looking extremely good at this point. So I think on the European side, Axis is looking good. As far as just kind of future plans, like I said, I'm going to take Leningrad and Karelia this turn. That basically for all intents and purposes, finishes off Russia. As Italy, I'm just going to keep buying men, maybe a couple of fighters, using this force over here to advance back into maybe Paris and building up for a return to North Africa. And then as Germany, like I said, all the resources are being put into Western Germany. I'm going to buy a bunch of tanks this turn, 8 more. So that'll give me a stack of 26 tanks in Western Germany. And then in subsequent turns, again, everything's going into Western Germany. So maybe not turn 10, but by turn 11, I'll definitely be launching a counterattack into France. And I feel confident I'm going to wipe out all of the British and U.S. units that are there. And then again, I'm activating Spain this turn with the fall of Leningrad. And even though there's not a lot in Spain, it at least, like I said, gives them something they got to worry about. They at least got to eliminate it. And if that even delays them moving further into Europe by a turn or two, then those Spanish units will have served their purpose. So that's how things kind of look in Europe. And then over here in the Pacific, as you can see, a lot of rising sun roundels spread throughout the Far East. So if you remember from the last video, I had taken Calcutta either at the end of at turn 2 or turn 3, I'm not sure. But Calcutta had fallen, and that effectively wiped out the Far East Command. I think at that point, at the end of this first video, the Far East Command had a single guy left, and I took him out. So the Far East Command's totally done. Then, as far as the Russians go, they had attacked, Agent 367 attacked Japan, even before Russia was at full production. So I'm not sure if that was necessarily the right move to make, but he went ahead and attacked. And as you can see, there are a bunch of Russian roundels on the board. He'd taken Mongolia. He's taken a bunch of the Japanese territories in Manchuria. The only problem is, as you can see, there's not one single Russian unit left on the board in the Far East, not one. So it's just empty territory at this point. So I'm going to be taking all those territories back in the next turn or two. I've eliminated every single Russian unit. And he does have this complex here in Novosibirsk. The problem is on Germany's turn, before Russia gets to move here on turn 9, I'm going to take Karelia. There goes his capital for the second time. There goes all his money. This stack of cash that Russia's got is all going to be mine. So he's going to have neither money nor capital to put any units down. So there's nothing he's going to be putting in Novosibirsk. So basically, Japan's going to run wild and finish off all the rest of this Russian territory. As far as the Chinese go, Communist China does have a couple territories, and they've got 2 men left here. Again, both of those guys are going to get killed this turn. I'll be able to take both of these Communist Chinese territories, so Communist China will be officially wiped out this turn. As far as National China goes, they've got 5 men left and a handful of territories here in central China. I'm going to take about, I'm calculating basically 3 of these territories will be mine. So he'll be down to a couple territories, 2 men, and then he does have $8 to spend. So he'll be able to buy 2 more guys. So at the end of turn 9, National China will be down to 2 territories and like 4 men. And then that will be completely eliminated turn 10. So within the next 2 turns, Japan will have completely eliminated both National and Communist China, and they already have all the Russian units wiped out. So basically from this half of the map all the way over to Japan itself will be completely Japanese. I've got probably about another $20 worth of territories that I'm going to take in this. So that just obviously bumps Japan up that much more, which right now they're collecting $77, not counting bonuses. I think they have $10 worth of bonuses right now, so that's $87. In the next 2 turns, they'll go up about another 20 just in mainland Asia over here. So you're talking up over, with bonuses and stuff, over $100. So Japan is like an economic juggernaut. And the thing is that, I basically don't even have to leave like any units in Asia. There's like nothing that the Allies can do to take any of this back. They have no units. Like I said, Russia, Far East Command, National China, Communist China, all completely wiped out within the next 2 turns. So I'm going to actually start moving some of the mobile units like tanks and mechs over here, eventually making it over here to the Far East to start taking back some of these British territories that are undefended. And again, the Incredible Falk doesn't have an industrial complex in Northern Africa, so he can't put new units down there. So it's basically what he's got there is what he's got to roll with. And he's going to have his hands full with Germany and Europe anyway. So he's not going to be able to do much to put new units down here to push back against my incursion into the Middle East here within the next couple of turns. So as far as mainland China, the Asian continent, Japan's just completely running wild, collecting all kinds of money, and basically have no worries whatsoever about the Allies taking pretty much any of those territories back or putting any pressure on Japan there. Then if we look at in the Pacific here, Anzac is still in the game for him and the U.S., and he does have a good U.S. fleet here, Agent 367 does. Okay, the problem is that if we look over here in Japanese home waters, I've got a stack of about 15 destroyers, 6 cruisers, a couple battleships, and 2 carriers with 4 fighters on it. So that's more than enough of a match for what he's got over here. Agent 367's got 2 loaded carriers, a couple battleships, a couple cruisers, about 3 destroyers, and a sub. He does have a stack of about maybe 6 destroyers behind off the coast of San Francisco. But definitely not enough to take on that Japanese fleet. And the problem is the U.S. and Japan, at least as far as the problem for the United States, is they're pretty much dead even in money right now. But the U.S. really isn't going to increase their income anymore. There's really no place they can go to increase it, whereas in the next couple turns, I'm going to jump by $20, $25 for Japan. So starting this turn 9, now Japan's going to slowly take the lead over the United States as far as the economy goes. So I'm going to be buying, more units per turn than he is. As a matter of fact, this first turn here, I've got $89 or so, I think, to spend as Japan. So I'm going to buy 4 transports and 16 men. Then I've got 2 transports already on the board down here, 2 transports over here. All that's going to go down into Japan and this major complex here. So that by turn 10, not only will I have this huge navy in Japan itself, I'll have 8 transports being able to transport all 16 men that I buy this turn. So now Agent 367 is going to be like, well, what the shit? Where's Japan going to go with that? I can take all 16 of those men, defended by this huge navy. I can start coming over here, maybe go up to Alaska, maybe land in Canada, maybe land in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm going to figure he's going to have to pull back and start putting money into ground units to defend the Western United States. Or I could come down in the South Pacific and make Anzac my next target and land down here in Australia and wipe out the Australians. Not sure which way I'm going to go. It basically is going to depend on how he reacts. I'm definitely going to go ahead and buy the transports and the men and have them in Japan. So depending on how he reacts, if he goes ahead and pulls back to the United States, then on turn 10, I'm going to start my way down to the South Pacific to attack Australia. If he maybe moves the U.S. fleet to the South Pacific, then I'll come across the Pacific to Canada, the United States. So it just depends on how he reacts. But the bottom line is, with Japan as strong as they are, both economically and militarily, and with the Allies having no chance whatsoever of taking back any of Asia, I don't see how the United States is going to be able to put any money into the European side of the map at all. I mean, Japan is, like I said, at the end of this turn, with all those men and those transports, the United States itself is in danger of being invaded. So I don't think Agent 367 is going to put pretty much any money whatsoever onto the European side, which is going to leave, again, the United Kingdom pretty much by themselves, taking on Germany and Italy. A Germany that will have finished off Russia and can concentrate all of their resources on the British force in Europe. So, I mean, this game might even end up being where Japan actually not only lands, but actually holds the west coast of the United States, which we haven't had that yet. I believe it was in game number 2 as Japan I invaded, and I was the western United States, and I was there for a couple of turns, but I eventually got pushed out. But the way this game's going and how Japan looks, I wouldn't be surprised if Japan lands and is able to stay in the western United States. So Japan's rolling. This turn's going to be put into men and transports, and then, like I said, depending on how the United States reacts, all those men and transports on turn 10 are either going to head into the South Pacific for an assault on Australia, or they're going over to Canada and the United States to hit the United States directly in the West Coast. So that's where things look here at the end of turn 8, heading to turn 9. Hopefully those guys will be over soon, although with the whole quarantine bullshit that's going on, not sure exactly when that's going to happen. Obviously, I'm itching to get back to this. I think I got the Allies on the run, so I want to hopefully complete my conquest, especially after I lost the last game. I got to get back in the winning column here. So hopefully those guys will make it over soon. Maybe our next day's off, we'll be able to finish off this game, and then I'll do the third part of a video on this game to cover how things went. So we'll see how it goes. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.